Guys, it was a ton of work, but I did it for you. Here is a awesome side-by-side tire comparison. Now, like I always say, side-by-side comparisons aren't great for height. What they are good for is comparing things like tread spacing, tread height, tire flexibility, etc., etc., etc. So these two tires aren't really relevant to the comparison. I'm just putting them there for shits and giggles. These four are, according to most, in the words of our fearless leader Donald Trump, according to many, the best mud tires out there right now. No, there's not assassinators here because I'm not an idiot. I'll test those eventually though. So these are my newest set. I got some 32 silverbacks, had them on the Razor. Always have wanted to test silverbacks, but we'll get into that later. Right now we're just going to focus on a comparison. So I'm going to sit down and you can see that the 32 Aztec at, so the lighting will adjust, okay? So that's, all tires are at 3 PSI, is just a little higher than a 31, okay? Both on 7-inch wheels. And you get 32 silverback, which everyone says is the same height as a 31, not the case. It's actually a good bit higher, like an inch higher than a 32 Aztec, and also that is at 3 PSI. And then we have the 31 Outlaw 3 over here, and it's also at 3 PSI, and you can see that the back is a little bit taller. And then you got the 32 paddle tire, 32 front sand paddle tire. This one's really big, so I just mounted it, and it's got a little extra air in it. It's probably like 9 PSI, but I need to keep it at 9 PSI for a little while. That's hard to mount, by the way. It's such a soft tire, I had to use ether. Also, I just dismounted these tires by hand and mounted them, and these tires by hand and mounted them because I swapped some wheels around because I don't like those wheels. We'll get into that later. Consider all things considered: weight, clean out ability, traction, ride quality, price. Aztecs are 100% the best deal right now. If I had to pick a tire to stick with on my bike at all time for a Rubicon, I'm really torn between a 31 Outlaw 1 and a 32 Aztec. Probably depends where I was riding more. If I was riding more weeds, sandy, silty bottom stuff, probably have a 31. If I was riding anything with clay, black mud, thick mud, I'd have an Aztec. If you're interested in Aztecs, there's a promo code. I'll link to the video for 5% off on the website. They gave me a Mud Puppy promo code to give you guys. Pretty awesome. There's all the other tires. Alrighty. So tread spacing. Obviously the paddle has the best spacing. But next to the paddle spacing, at the corner knobbies, the Outlaw 3, Silverback, and Aztec are all very similar spacing. The void space between here and here is actually pretty close. I'm actually going to tape measure and show you exactly how close, because no one cares about my opinion. You guys want to see evidence. Tape measure. Ta-da! Yes, everything is missing tires, obviously. So at the corners, we've got about, let's go right here, 6 inches between them. With the Silverback, you got 6 inches between them again, exactly. And with this tire, ooh, 6 1/4. So as you can see, my eyeballing was accurate to within 1/4 inch. Okay, and then of course the 31s have, like, you know, 2.5, 3 inches. Really tight tread spacing. Okay, so this distance from here to here really is what determines how well a tire cleans out. That's where it's going to void the mud, right? This way. Now another factor with the tire cleaning out is how soft it is. If the carcass flexes a lot and the knobbies flex a lot, it'll squirt the mud out the side basically. 31 obviously dominates here. That's the only one of 31 even works because the tread spacing is very tight, but because the tire is soft, it can actually clean out. Okay, now another interesting thing is tread spacing in the center. So you see this tire, the maximum space here is about 1 inch. This tire, about 1.5 inches. 31s, the knobbies are a lot more sloped, very Zilla-like. You actually end up with 2.5 inches. Compressor kicked on. So the spacing from the center knobbies has a lot to do with how the tire bites, if you will. So because of this tire having tight spacing here but big spacing here, 31 bites really well. Climbing out of a hole does pretty good as long as it's not a really slick surface. If it's a real slick surface, the knobbies are kind of soft and don't want to actually bite into it. But in general, the spacing here gives them a pretty good amount of bite. These have good bite just because it's a real sharp tread and has this hard scoop. These, I've been finding, don't hate me, don't have very good bite. They spin a lot. They do clean out easy, but the spacing here is so close, they spin a lot. Now, the reason the spacing is close is because they ride great, which brings me to the Silverback. The worst riding tire I've ever had. It rides worse than a Black Mamba. The only thing I can think about that's almost as rough is a 28-inch Outlaw 2, but that's because of the spacing from here to here. So you see the spacing from here to here is 4 inches, okay? That means this tire bites. So this tire bites and cleans out well. This tire cleans out well, this tire cleans out well, bites okay. This is the hardest biting tire. And that's just because, well, number one, has more tread. It's got 2.5 inches. This is about 2. This has about, I don't know, 1.75. This has about 1.75. But it's not just the tread depth. Tread depth isn't actually that relevant in a lot of cases. It's the spacing. But the trade-off is that it rides like shit. Also, not crazy with the Silverback rubber compound. Just one ride I have on these, and I'm also already chunking. I'll show you that when I move the tires around. And there's, you know, a good bit of wear just because these grooves are so deep and stuff, so you're really riding on a very small amount of rubber. Definitely a hardcore thick mud tire. Everyone says, oh, what's the best tire? Well, there's no answer for that. It depends on where you ride and how you ride. This is 100% the best tire for stuff with a sandy, silty bottom. It doesn't dig a hole and it paddles. 100% the best tire for weeds. 100% the best tire for swamp. This tire is witchcraft, and it's actually good everywhere. I've tried it so far, and it rides smooth, and it's light, and I just love these tires. This tire is a little better than the Aztec for clay, and I say a little better. The Aztec's really good, but the difference is these corner knobbies, right? This is a very aggressive corner knobby, and this is a wider tire, so yeah, it just pulls its ass off. Way harder to spin, but these pull pretty good. These tires, I am not that impressed with them. For the weight and everything and how good they look, they spin a lot. They have a nice square profile, right? The Silverback doesn't. It's kind of rounded. These are both pretty square. Once I put the Silverback at 0 PSI, like I plan to run it on these wheels, it'll get more square. Like I said, all at 3 PSI, because that's what most people run. But not real impressed with these. I ran them on the Can-Am, Rubicon, Razor, and they just spin. These things hook up. Okay, so now something else everyone is interested in for some reason, now it's important, is weight. So I got the scale out, and we're gonna weigh a bunch of tires real quick. So that's why I left some off the rims, so we can weigh them. So here's a 32, it's a little bit of water in there, I have to get that out. 32 by 10 Silverback, which, by the way, before I forget, 32 by 10, right? Let's do one that's already on a wheel. That tire is easily 11 inches wide. That's because of all the corner knobbies. So it all depends how you measure it. These 31s are actually about 9.25 inches wide. The Aztecs are pretty fat. They're about 10 inches. The 31 Outlaw 1s are skinny, like 9. The Outlaw 3 right here is on, let's get a tire out. It's on an MSA beadlock. These are those ones that are on sale, so I got a set. This wheel is closer to 8 inches wide than 7 inches wide if you actually measure it properly and compare it to other wheels. So the tire's a little ballooned out because it's such a fat wheel. Something I don't like about this wheel, look how much gap there is here between the beadlock ring and the outside of the bead. You're only grabbing on the very inside of the bead. Let me compare that to some hypers. Hypers all the way to the outside of the bead. If you look at some STI HD9s, if I can get to it, all the way to the outside of the bead. And if you look at some double bead locks, some ITP severe duty double bead locks, all the way to the outside of the bead. So MSA kind of screwed that up. I don't like MSA that much. They're kind of fuckboy wheels. Those things are extremely heavy. I'll put it on the scale for you in a minute. But I don't know, I'm not crazy with that wheel. Okay, so back to what I was doing before I got sidetracked. Let's dry that little bit of water out of the Silverback to get a more accurate weight measurement. Someone decided to wash the truck right next to my tires. Poor truck. Okay, so scale went to sleep already. 32 Silverback, 52.5 pounds. Okay. Let's do an Outlaw 3 next. 31 Outlaw 3. Also worth noting, this is for a 16-inch wheel. So even though you're going to see a weight, you need to add more to that because 16-inch wheels are heavier than 14-inch wheels. 49.1 pounds. But like I said, because it's a 16-inch wheel, and it's relatively about as heavy as a Silverback, although wheel weight's not as important as tire weight. I don't have a 31 off the rim. I don't have an Aztec off the rim. but I've already weighed them in other videos, and you know that a 31 is about 40.5 pounds off the tire, and Aztex is about 42 pounds off the rim, excuse me. We can weigh one of these for shits and giggles. These are my new ribbed front tires for hydroplaning. They're like a 33, and they're 23.7 pounds, can't beat that. And I guess we'll weigh a rear paddle tire, because that's fun, right? This is a 32.5 by 14 roughly, so it comes out to. And that's trying to get the balance on its own. It's like a soft tire, doesn't want to. There you go, 29 pounds. Okay. And now we gotta weigh some wheels. So here's the MSA, what are these called? Battles, 14 by 7. This is what my Silverbacks came on. I am selling them because I don't like the offset. They're too wide. 12.6 pounds though. That's a really light 14. The Battles are always one of the lightest MSA wheels. I do like that they're lightweight, but just too much offset. I don't like my stuff being too wide. Here's the 16 Steelies. I had the Outlaw 3s on. They are 23 pounds. Pretty heavy, but considering they're 16 and they fit any lug pattern, not too bad. Oh, both those sets of wheels are for sale, by the way. If you guys want some, hit me up. I'm going to grab an MSA beadlock for you. All right, there's an MSA beadlock, 21 pounds dead with the beadlock ring and the bolts. So there's some wheel weights for you. If you want some other weights, I have other videos that talk about the weight of the Hypers, which are amazing, the HD9s, all that. But as much as I love you guys, I'm not unmounting all those wheels. Ain't no way. I can actually throw the 31s on the scale for you on the Hypers. Keep in mind that these are used tires and I don't clean my shit worth a damn. So they've got some mud on them, which will add some weight, as you can see. But there's a 31 on a Hyper with some mud, so it's kind of irrelevant. 58 pounds. Probably irrelevant because I don't remember what it came out to last time. And here is Aztec. It's stuck in here on an HD9 beadlock. One of my favorite wheels because it comes in a 6+1 offset. And I like narrow offsets because you can always run a wheel spacer to make your bike wider, but you can't do anything to make it skinnier if you buy too wide a wheel. So there's the 58, 57.8, 50, well, let's see if it'll balance. Yeah, 58 pounds. Okay. So there's some wheel weights. I guess I'll put this one on there even though I weighed the tire and ram separately a second ago. Oh, that's heavy. 70.3 pounds. Outlaw 3 on a 16. And let's weigh the Silverback on the ITP Severe Duty beadlocks. Pretty heavy beadlock, but it's a double beadlock and they're pretty cheap compared to a Hyper. Okay, 73.5 pounds. Okay. One thing I want to talk about is hardness. So Silverbacks, pretty soft. You see how that flexes, and that's because it's kind of thin. But the carcass overall, if you run low PSI in this tire, it'll flex a little bit. This one doesn't have any air in it, so you can really see that, you know, it's got some flex to it. It was actually pretty easy to mount because it has some flex to it. Outlaw 3s, on the other hand, are made for side-by-sides that weigh 2,000 pounds, like 5-seater Rangers or whatever. So these things don't flex at all, and very stiff, very thick, and even though these are pretty broken in, still no flex. Got to run 0 PSI in these, but that's just unacceptable. Aztecs, they were hard when I bought them, but they're actually breaking in pretty good, and because the rubber's kind of thin, you know, they start to flex now. And the carcass flexes a little bit too, even with a couple PSI in it. And obviously, you know, 31-inch Outlaws are just the goopiest, flexiest, twistiest tire ever. I have the durometer, but no one seems to care about that, especially with used tires. It's not that relevant. Well, maybe it's more relevant because they're broken in. I don't know. Back versus 31 Outlaw 3. As you can see, Silverback is just a hair taller. Now, it kind of depends how it's sitting, right? Silverback has way bigger spacing here to here, and because the Silverback is sitting between knobbies, so it'll balance, it actually looks a little shorter than it is. The only way to measure a tire is to wrap a string around it and divide by pi. Yes, obviously not doing that for all 10 of these tires. But like I said earlier, same tread spacing here, but the Silverback's got a lot more tread spacing here, which means it bites. Also, deep voids here that are nice and wide for a little more grip. Real skinny voids here that aren't deep because it's designed to support the weight of a side-by-side. This is kind of an old school tire. They're actually hard to find now, these 32 backs. A lot of people don't have them in stock. This is back in the day. This is a hardcore four-wheeler tire. This is a tire designed with side-by-sides in mind. Even though they made small sizes now, they're all kind of stiff. Okay, but that's a good comparison there. If you're looking between those two tires, this is the best way you're going to be able to compare them without buying them or going somewhere and looking at them in person. So yes, you're welcome. Great fuckers. Okay, 32-inch Silverback versus 32-inch Aztec. Now, the Aztec is kind of a new tire, not a lot of people know about it, but it's a great tire, especially for the price and the weight. So here you go. They're both 32s. Aztec looks right here about half an inch shorter because it's between knobbies, and this one isn't because it's almost continuous in the center. I'd say the Aztec is probably 3/4 of an inch shorter. Aztec runs a little short, maybe an inch short. It's probably a true 31. This 32 measures a little short. It's probably a true 31.5. Also, a lot of the people say these 32 Silverbacks are really short. Not really the case, obviously. Mine aren't ballooned out that much. Still a pretty flat tread profile, and they're on a regular 7-inch wheel, and they're at 4 psi, and they're pretty tall. So whatever. Okay, but I love the Aztecs, and fun fact: the Aztec is $100 cheaper than the Silverback is, and significantly lighter, and significantly easier to spin. Part of being light, obviously. But here's the old rivalry, right? 31. I guess the old rivalry would really be a 31 wide versus a 32 back. Don't have a 31 wide on me at the moment to try out for you, unfortunately. See it'll balance. Silverback's like 1.5 inches taller. It's a lot wider, way more side knobby. The 31 skinny barely really has any corner bite. This has all of the freaking corner bite, and it's got this little knobby right here that wraps all the way around. Wish I wanted to show you this. Mine have a lot of cuts and chunks taken out of them, because Silverbacks use a really shitty rubber compound. That's kind of a known thing. Knobbies rip off of them and stuff. That's why they're not a great side-by-side tire, but I had them on the Razor and it was a little much for them. But way wider, way taller, way more aggressive, way more spacing, you know, on the sides. But the nice slope knobbies of a 31 make it spin pretty easy, and for some reason a 31 is just the best at not digging holes. Now, it's worth mentioning these 31s are on a 7-inch wheel. My front 31s are on a 6-inch wheel, which makes them look a little more aggressive and points the knobbies out more. So I can do like kind of a 31 skinny wide setup, if you will. But obviously this tire looks way better. But here's the thing. This tire rides like an all-terrain. You can ride it anywhere all day long and you're going to be fine. It wears pretty decent. This tire beats the shit out of you and wears fast. And it's heavy. And in silt, this is going to dig holes, and you're not going to be able to walk anywhere. It's too aggressive for weeds. It'll dig holes in weeds. It'll break through if you're trying to creep. So both of these are going to be my Rubicon tires. So that's my plan anyways. This will be my, like, you know, sandy water holopole type tire. This will be my thick, you know, clay, sticky mud compound type tire. Because this thing about this tire is spinning it real slow in thick sticky mud, it doesn't clean out. And spinning it real slow is really the only option you have with a Honda. So these are going to go on the Can-Am next, probably. These are going to go on the Rubicon for testing. Of course, I'm going to put a bigger gear reduction. Okay, so that's that comparison. And let me get rid of the Silverback and give you an Outlaw versus Aztec comparison. 31 Outlaw Skinny versus 32 Aztec. Aztecs, you know, a little taller, a little wider, a lot more spacing, nice continuous tread in the center, so they rides pretty smooth. 31 Outlaw is softer and a little bit lighter and a little more expensive. This is a very, very good tire for the price. And as we saw riding with Bo, the Aztec definitely outpulls the 31 in a lot of situations because of the tread spacing and the way this cup right here and paddles like a Mamba, but without the weight. So it's kind of the perfect tire. I really hope those catch on because I want to get a few sets cheap. Right now they're only available in a 30 and a 32. If you're interested in Aztecs, there's a promo code. I'll link to the video for 5% off on the website. They gave me a Mud Puppy promo code to give you guys. Pretty awesome. So here's a 31 Outlaw 3 versus a 31 Outlaw 1. Obviously a completely different tire. This looks more like an agricultural tire. This looks like a real ATV mud tire. It's a little taller because Outlaw 2s and Outlaw 3s are much more true to height. It's a little wider. It has a little more side knobby. You can see that's kind of ballooned out on this wheel because it's a almost 8-inch wide wheel. But it's a lot heavier. It's a lot stiffer. And I just don't think it looks as good. I don't like the way they balloon out. I'm really not a big fan of the Outlaw 3, if I'm honest. That's why they're on the girlfriend's bike. Anyways, one good thing with the Outlaw 3 is that it's a 31 on a 16-inch wheel, so if you have no idea what you're doing and you can't balance a bike, they stick to the bottom a lot better, and they're great for doing really, really deep water riding because you don't have to worry about bobbing around and, you know, floating off the bike and stuff because there's a 16-inch wheel, so there's less buoyancy and this tire is so heavy. So there's a lot of tires. Comment, questions, concerns, whatever in the comment section. I'm going to finish mounting these up before it gets completely dark. And that way I can actually get the razor in the garage because I didn't put it in far enough like an idiot. And all of these are being tripods right now, so they're angry as well. But yep, lots of work getting all these tires mounted by hand. But the reason I do tires by hand with my old Harbor Freight bead breaker and just good old-fashioned pry bars is because every time I take a tire to the tire shop, they screw up my beads. So one of these is how I do my tires. Yes, you're going to scratch your rim a little bit, but guess what? I don't give a shit what my rims look like. I don't want my beads leaking. So I do them all by hand. Another thing to point out is some wheels are easier to mount than others. These wheels, not that easy to mount. This groove in the center isn't very deep. And it's almost a symmetrical wheel, so it doesn't matter if you mount it from the front or the back, it's still going to be a pain in the ass. I took them off the back so I don't have many scratches. These have a very nice deep groove, pretty easy to dismount, except that Outlaw 3s are a huge pain in the ass. And of course, bead locks are really easy. To mount a single bead lock, you just drop the tire and bolt it on. I can do that with no tools. I can do it with a ratchet. That's it, no pry bars. Double bead locks are a little harder to mount, but a lot easier to dismount. And, you know, of course, regular wheels, you're just sitting there, you know, pry bar for Jesus all day long. But I got a lot more tires than this, but these are the only ones I had readily available here to dismount for you. But it's a pretty good comparison. I think without a doubt the 3 best mud tires on the market right now are the 31 Skinny, the 32 Silverback for real thick hardcore shit that doesn't involve any trail riding or pavement riding, and the best deal, 32 Silverbacks are going to be cool in the Rubicon, but I'm going to break axles, I'm going to break rear drive shafts, I'm going to break the front diff, etc., etc., etc. It's just too heavy, it's too much tire, but I'm going to do it because Hondas don't break anyway, so I need to find a way to make it interesting to me. Also, I have some new shocks coming in for the Rubicon that were very expensive. And I'm not going to tell you what they are, but some of you guys can probably guess. There's that arched arm setup. Oh, yes, arched and raked. This thing, nitrous is going on it very soon. I'm waiting for a couple more parts to get it all set up right. I wanted to get the right throttle bodies and everything, the aluminum throttle bodies. So those are getting made, but it's going to be a monster.